بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه الطاهرين ما دام ما في السماوات والأرضين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما اللهم إنا نسألك علما ينفعنا وارفعنا اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا واسعا وعملا متقبلا وشفاء من كل داء نعوذ بك من علم لا ينفع ومن قلب لا يخشع ومن عمل لا يرفع ومن قول لا يسمع ومن دعاء لا يستجاب له برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته كيف حالكم؟ الحمد لله ما شاء الله. Today, inshallah, by the grace and mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our resolve is to finish Surah Al-Humazah, and then we can progress on to the next chapter, bi'idhnillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you would be as kind as to remind me where we stopped. Verse number 5. So we continue from Narullahi al-Muqadah. 4. وَمَا أَدَرَاكَ مَا الْحُطَمَةِ نَارُ اللَّهِ الْمُوقَدَةِ. Okay, so we'll just backtrack and we'll read from وَمَا أَدَرَاكَ مَا الْحُطَمَةِ. To remind yourself and myself in terms of the context of understanding when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warns against a particular punishment. When Allah warns against a punishment, the idea is not that Allah wants to punish you, but the idea is forewarned is forearmed. And the idea is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the punishment as a deterrent. We gave an example of a traffic officer. According to South African law, that if a traffic officer has a camera and he wants to speed trap you, then a condition for the validity of the fine is that the traffic officer must be visible. If he's not visible, and then the fine falls away. Why? Because the idea behind the traffic officer being there is not to catch you speeding, but to deter you from speeding. So even I've been told, and Allah knows best, that if there's a camera but there's no warning signs before that it's an 80-kilometer zone and you should keep the speed limit below that, if there's no warning like that and you get caught, then too you can make a case and the fine can be squashed. Why? Because the whole idea behind the camera is not to catch you, but rather to deter you from speeding, and Allah knows best. Therefore you find in certain other first world countries that they basically change the way that the roads work. They don't have stop streets because it's easy to jump a stop street. What they have is they have these roundabouts. So what's the idea behind the roundabout as opposed to a stop street? We want you to maintain a certain speed and not go above that speed. So likewise here, we don't know, maybe I have that complex road structure, but the idea behind the speed fines is to deter you from speeding and not to catch you speeding, and Allah knows best. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He doesn't create the fire in order to throw you into the fire, no. Allah creates that as a deterrent, as a warning. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks, وَمَا أَدَرَاكَ مَا الْحُطَمَةِ. And this type of approach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses in different places in the Quran. وَمَا أَدَرَاكَ. So ma is, you've come across a number of ma's, haven't you? Okay, so for this class perhaps we'll just focus on what Ibn Abbas refers to as Tafsirul Arab. You want to give an exegesis of the verses, but what? Just that linguistic, breaking it down. So ma, how many ma's have you come across? So the one ma is ma fa'ala, he did not do, right? The other ma, I don't know if you come across the ma, it says like ma ismuka, what is your name? So that is what we refer to as ma istifhamiyya, right? What do they call it? The interrogative, like you interrogate, you're asking a question. So here the ma here is ma istifhamiyya. Does these terms sound familiar? No? Okay, the ma of a question mark, like ma ismuka, what is your name? So the word ma here translates as what? Wa ma, and what? Adaraka. Okay, adaraka. Dara yadri means to know. Adara yudri idra'an means to cause to know. What will make you know? What will make you understand? Mal hutamah. What is hutamah? So from before we've understood that hutamah is a name of the fire of hell. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْحُطَمَةِ. So now in verse number 6, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to explain. So what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says? What is this hutamah? He says, Narullahi al-muqada. So let's go back to what we used to do. We used to count the words, right, in this verse. How many words are there in this verse? 1, 2, 3, right? Narullahi, right? That is a construct. What type of construction is that? Mudaf, mudaf ilay. Narullahi. The fire. Nar means fire. Nar means fire. Allah, Ismul Jalala, the name of Allah. Narullahi. And when we see an idafa construction and we translate it into English, then the word of is going to feature in the translation. Narullahi, the fire of Allah. So this hutamah, what is this hutamah? It is the fire of Allah. And then Allah describes this fire. What does He say? Al-Muqadah. Al-Muqadah. The fire of Allah, which is Al-Muqadah. Now the word Al-Muqadah, what is it? Ism, fi'l, or harf? Ism. Why do you say it's an ism? At Al at the beginning. Can I ask you another question? Is it masculine or feminine? Feminine. Why do you say it's feminine? The ta at the end. So now the word Al-Muqadah. Al-Muqadah. Why is it feminine? Because it refers to the word nar. And nar is feminine. Not in terms of the wording, but just the Arabs have always considered it to be feminine. Calamities are like that, maf. I mean, Narullahi al-Muqadah. The fire of Allah. Al-Muqadatu. Al-Muqadatu. So Muqada, what does Muqada mean? So we've now looked at the linguistic approach to it, and all the words fit together. The word Muqada, did you do, what do they call it now? You get, Muqid means to light. Muqad means to be lighted. So the word Waqada, the root letters there, you know, are you still busy with like the 3 letters? You haven't gone on to verbs that are made up of more than 3 letters. Okay, no problem. So let me just tell you that Muqada, the root letters of this noun are 3. What are they? Waw, Qaf, and Dal. Waqada, which means to light. Awqada yuqidu means to light. But now when you place it on the scale, not Muqid, but Muqada, Muqad, a fatha, it means a fire that is lighted. So in other words, is this hot already or not? It's burning. So Narullah al-Muqada, the fire of Allah, the burning fire of Allah, the lighted fire of Allah, if you want to put it in that way. You know, somebody touches a fire isn't lit already, say, be careful, we're going to light a fire there. But if the fire is already lighted and the person touches, what's the consequences going to be of a lighted fire? You're going to burn. So that's the nature of this particular fire. Now, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in this part of the verse, let's read through the translation first. Verse number 7. Again, we're on the Arab translation. So, allati, have you come across this word before? Okay. Now, allati, you have the counterpart, the masculine is alladhi, the one who, or that which, because fire is not animate, it's inanimate. But now we don't say alladhi, we say allati, because the word fire is feminine. Allati. So the lighted fire of Allah, allati, which tattali'u. So now, what does that word look like? You're not familiar with that word because you haven't come across that form. Tattali'u. Right? But is that an ism, fi'l, harf? If you were to take a guess, what would you say? Ism, fi'l, harf? Harf is out, right? Ism and fi'l, what's going to be? Fa'al. What tells you it's a fa'al? That ta at the beginning. Tattali'u. The form may be strange, but the beginning, somewhat recognizable. That usually a present tense verb begins with either a ya or a ta. So tattali'u. The root letters there again are ta, lam, and ain. Tala'a. Tala'a means to come across. But now come across, that sounds very vague. Let me give it to you in a sentence. Tala'at ash-shamsu. Tala'at ash-shamsu. The sun rose. What does it mean the sun rose? What happens with the sun? The sun is at the bottom of the horizon, right? Then the sun comes up, right? Now, as the sun comes up, the closer it comes to the horizon, we get daybreak, which is Fajr time, right? Through dawn. And then what happens is, when the sun rises, what happens? The whole disk, it comes above the horizon. So they talk about the sun coming across the earth. From our perspective, what does it appear like? It appears like the sun is coming across the earth. You with me? So here Allah is talking about the fire. The fire of Allah, the lighted fire of Allah, allati, which comes across, like the sun comes across the earth. The fire of Allah, tattali'u, it comes across what? Alal af'idah. Ala means upon. So the sun rises upon the earth. This fire will rise upon what? It will rise upon al-af'idah. The word al-af'idah is an ism fa'il harf. Ism, why? Al. Okay, now this ism, what does it look like? Does it look like a singular, dual, or plural? It's not dual, right? Because there's no ani. So it's either singular or it's plural. So if you were to take a gamble, what would you say? Plural. Plural. Don't gamble, Auntie Waiba, because you're going to lose all your money. Al-af'idah. Af'idah is a plural. The singular word is fu'ad. Have you heard the word fu'ad before? Fu'ad, we give it as a name. Fu'ad means heart. Af'idah means hearts. So from a certain perspective, what other word in Arabic do you know that also means heart? Qalb. Some say qalb refers to a heart that is in at peace. Qalb salim. But then the same organ, if it's not at peace, they say it refers to you use a different word to refer to it now. Now you say fu'ad. You follow? In the Arabic language you have this, the spiritual entity that sort of located where your physical heart is located. It's called a heart also, right? If it's in a sedentary and peaceful state, it's called the qalb. If it is in an agitated state, they refer to the same organ as fu'ad. You with me? Sometimes you refer to your son, oh my son. Sometimes an upset mother or father, I don't know what to call you anymore. It's the same person, isn't it? But you use a different terms. You follow me? Because why? When you said my son, so when they washed up and they clean the room and do everything nicely. But now, whatever you tell them to do, they do the complete opposite. And now you say, it's still the same son, right? But you say, I don't know what to call you anymore. So in the Arabic language, when the heart is in a particular state, they call it a heart. When the heart is in another state, they give it a different name. It's the same organ. So fu'ad, according to some. So now, back to the context of the verse. What does Allah say? The lighted fire of Allah, that which will rise upon what? Agitated hearts. Now what's a heart? Is it agitated? What causes the heart to be agitated? It reminds me about, and just very quickly we run through that, it won't take too much time. What time is that now? That one at the back or this one here? Is it the same? 43. Okay, so that one's a bit behind, and that one's in front, isn't it? Oh no, it is right, like almost. Okay. Just like an agitated heart. They were saying, Musa alayhi salam, and you come across this tafsir again before, the magicians, what happened was, they threw their staffs, right? Then what happened? It ostensibly turned into snakes, right? Now you remember, if you look at the context of the story, what happened was Musa alayhi salam, the magicians, they were allowed a few days to prepare the stage for this event, wasn't it? And then they called Musa. So they prepared a stage for the event, like literally a stage, and then they threw down the staffs, and it turned into snakes. Musa alayhi salam came, he threw down his staff, it turned into a real snake, and that real snake gobbled up the other snakes. According to one tafsir, what did they do with the stage? What happened was, with the stage, they got fire underneath. Fire underneath. And they had something that resembled a staff, but they put mercury in it. Mercury. Now, when mercury is heated up, what happens to it? It becomes agitated, up and down. You with me? I'm just trying to give an idea. Now, you see, like if you have a fire, you place a steel metal on top of it, and you put mercury on top. What's going to happen to the mercury? It's going to be bouncing up and down. So, in other words, it's agitated. Right? So, now what happens is agitated heart. Allah's talking about these people who have what qualities? They have the quality of wailul likulli humazatil lumazah. They carry tales. They scorn at people in front of those people. So these are bad qualities. And these bad qualities are housed where? In the heart, in the soul. And because these qualities are housed in the soul, it leads to an agitated soul, and as a consequence to an agitated person. Sometimes you want to know, why am I so anxious? Anxiety is a spiritual ailment. Why am I so agitated? It's because within the soul there are certain qualities which by its very nature are bad, and that's why your soul becomes agitated. So what's going to happen? And I mentioned right at the beginning, I mentioned now, that one of my understandings of this is that, to purify your heart and to get it from that agitated state to a pure state, it takes a lot of hard work. It's almost like you have to burn it out. And if you don't burn it out now, then what's going to happen? Then purification ultimately is going to take place. But you don't want it to take place when Allah says that what will inform you about the hutama? It is the lighted fire of Allah which will rise upon the heart and will do what? It will remove these lesser qualities from your heart. But at that time, purging it at that time, is it of any benefit to you? No. Part of our daily struggle, of our life struggle really, is to purge our hearts from lesser qualities. And it's not an easy thing. It's a difficult thing. I mean, physically, how does Allah remove it over there? By a fire that comes across your heart. So if it takes a fire to remove these qualities in the year after, how much effort mustn't we make now to purge ourselves of these qualities? And if you purge yourself and you make the effort to remove these qualities from your heart, particularly that love for wealth, and thinking that wealth has given you status, and that when you have wealth, you yourself grant yourself a license to do things which is otherwise impermissible. Why? Because you have money. You're now able to, disrespect people because you have money, because you can pay for it. Because you have more money than the next person. If these qualities aren't removed here, these qualities, it takes an effort to remove. So may Allah grant us the strength to do that, inshallah. التي تطلع على الأفئدة. It's not a flaccid process. It's a, it needs a strong intention, and it needs a resolve from us to better ourselves by removing our bad qualities and embellishing ourselves with good qualities, and Allah knows best. This rhetoric, this type of talk is foreign to a lot of us. You might even tell yourself that I didn't come here for this. It's so foreign in terms of our circles. It is one of the primary functions of the Prophet ﷺ that Ibrahim ﷺ made dua that they send the messenger, and part of the description of this messenger is وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, that he may spiritually purify them. All of our problems, all the vice that you see in the world, where does it start? Is the beginnings of that external or internal. The person who wants to steal, the person who wants to pilfer, the person who wants to rape. Where does all of that start? It starts internally or externally? Internally. So when we want to look for solutions to those problems, must we look externally or internally? Internally. All of the problems that we have, we need to look internally. It is because it's in that fu'ad, and that fu'ad must be made into a qalb. You with me? This is very, very important and unique, wallahu alam, in terms of the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about how the heart is going to be purged from those qualities in the year after. These lesser qualities, we must. Our scholars say that if you can't, it's like almost necessary for you to find somebody who's able to help you rid yourself of that lesser qualities. You know what's going to happen if there's a clot in your heart, on your heart? What are you going to do? You're going to go to a heart surgeon, and you're going to take whatever steps is required. Nowadays, if you don't have the money on your own, you're going to do a crowdfunding to get the money in order to remove that clot from your heart, to fund your surgery. What does the Prophet ﷺ say? Whenever you sin, what happens? A spot comes on your spiritual heart. And even greater, like it's difficult to remove that clot from your heart, you must go undergo a process. Likewise, when are we going to start going to that process of removing those black dots from our hearts? What happens? Somebody, you go to the doctor, they say now, if you came 5 years before, we could have done something about your condition. It can happen spiritually, that if you don't do something about the spiritual ailments that we have, that the spiritual doctors will tell you, look, you came a bit too late. Miserliness has overcome you. Greed has overcome you. It's part of your nature now. Jealousy has overcome you. Backbiting is part of your nature. It's like become part and parcel of you. It runs through your, like blood runs through your system. It requires a conscious effort from us to spiritually purify ourselves. And my understanding, Wallahu Alam, is that this verse talks about purging of those black dots in the year after is going to be through that great fire. It is telling of the requirement of what you need to do in this worldly sphere in order to rid yourself of those qualities. Wallahu Alam. Innaha alayhim mu'sada. Indeed, innaha, again Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what does he say? Innaha, indeed, it. Inna means indeed. Ha is the pronoun. So it's a masculine pronoun or feminine pronoun? Feminine. What does it refer to? The fire. Innaha alayhim. The word ala means upon. Alayhi, upon him. Alayhima, upon them too. Alayhim, upon them. Indeed, it will be upon them. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? Mu'sada. It will be closed upon them. It will be closed upon them. Now we know, I'm not too much of a physics and science students, but I see we have physics and science students in the class also. So what happens is, water, you can only boil to 100. You can't boil boiling water. Am I correct? Water reaches a certain temperature, and then you can't boil it beyond that. You can boil it, it's going to get steam and it's going to go away, but you can't boil it beyond that. Now a fire, if you manipulate a fire, can you create more heat out of it? If you manipulate a fire, in other words, you have an oven that is going to go to this, but if you redesign that oven and you create it in certain spaces, what's going to happen to it? You can manipulate the fire, and in doing so you increase the heat of the fire. So what happens is, generally you find some of these, like these novel eco stoves, and it's eco heating, whereby you have a very little bit of wood, but the way the apparatus is designed is, it's in a very closed space, and the closed space generates a greater degree of heat. Mu'sada refers to a fire in a closed space, but not closed with the right amount of oxygen and the right amount of circumstance that was going to do what? Just going to create more heat. Mu'sada, closed in this particular manner. Fi amadim mumaddada. What does Allah say? Fi, and this is going to happen, and part of the fire of hell, and in terms of the punishment, would be the psychological part of it. You see, if the whole class gets into trouble, how bad do you feel? It's alright, because not only me, it's everybody, right? But if one person gets into trouble and the person is singled out, it's bad. If all the boys in the class must go to the office like primary school, it's not so bad because it's me and everybody else. But if only you are singled out, and you must go. Now in the fire of hell, what happens psychologically, people are cordoned off, made to feel almost like you're the only one experiencing this punishment. So it's like a punishment upon a punishment. So here Allah says, fi amadin. Amad is in pillars, in columns. Mumaddada. Mumaddada refers to that which is stretched out, in other words, raised columns. So we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sincerely that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from these terrible punishments. And Allah has given us a mercy in terms of mentioning these punishments to us, so that this deterrent can actually help and allow us to do what we need to do in order to avoid the punishment. فَجَزَاكُمُ اللَّهُ خَيْرًا وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَةُ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى وَبَرَكَاتُهُ.